All right, let's get started. Start this. Hello, everyone. Seeing a lot of hellos in chat. This is awesome. This is what I want to see more of. Helen and John, yeah, it's stay inside. It's going to be absolutely gross, and then freezing for Saturday and Sunday. So a very fun holiday for us. Anyway, welcome to our last community update for the year. I'm excited, mostly because this is the last real thing I have to do before I mentally check out. So we'll see how long I can actually stay focused on this. By all means, come say hi in chat. We've actually got a really good turnout. I had no idea what it was going to look like based on end of the year and people taking vacations and stuff. But this is what I like to hear. I like to see. So a few quick things before we get started with today's content. Bazel 6.0 was released. Check out the blog for some more information, some release notes. Congratulations to everyone involved. I've been doing software long enough where any release is, let's just call it a small miracle. I know everything goes into it. I watched everything that went into this one. So thank you to both Googlers and community members who contributed. This is, I didn't write it on here, but one of our LTS releases. We're actually going to talk a little bit about the cadence of that during our actual content today. Guys, this hat is really, really sweaty. It's gross in here. And then community days in 2023. So I will paste that link in. I just didn't get a chance to do any kind of Bitly before this. Helen reached out to me about a variety of community days they want to put on over the course of 2023. Those of you who were at BazelCon may have attended the community day on the day zero of the event up at Datadog headquarters. That was incredible. The amount of people there, and I can be very clear about this, in an event that Google had nothing to do with is awesome. I said this at BazelCon itself, but I've been doing open source now for 16 years professionally, personally before that. To see a community, especially one where it's so driven by a single company, and that you see the community start to take ownership and start up their own initiatives is an amazing health metric for the community. I'm jumping ahead a little bit to my Ghosts of Christmas Past and talking about what we accomplished this year. But I think it's really great. So taking a look in there, when we get to that form, and like I said, I'm going to paste it in to make it a little bit simpler. You'll see that there's a couple of different options: Israel, Iceland, which I really, really want to go to, Munich, and then a fair amount of places floating around the US. So right now they're just gauging interest. I love the idea. I'll even kind of show my hand a little bit. I would also love to get a roadshow type of concept going where me and a subset of the engineers hop around different cities doing training and individual types of encounters. I have no idea. I'm not committing to anything, so I gotta understand what I'm gonna be allowed to do next year. But the community days thing is happening. So take a look at that form. Let them know when you think you'll be able to attend, and more importantly, where you think you'll be able to attend. And I'm really excited to see these going on, and I hope I get a chance to see y'all at a bunch of these. So that brings us to our lovely holiday broadcast, which is to say our Fireplace chat. I have two speakers with us today. Everyone should pretty much know who they are. The goal, and I said this in the email, it's meant to be conversational, so ask lots of questions. We have some things we can cover in terms of looking back over the year, what we want to do next year, and so on. But by all means, please ask questions, especially those of you who have never been to one of these before. Drop your question in chat. I will moderate as appropriate and bring them up to interrupt our speakers. So let's just have some fun with this one. I don't even care how closely Bazel they are related. Let's just all kind of wind down as the year comes to an end for a rather busy year, I'd like to say. But let's get some other people up so I can stop kind of randomly rambling. Sven, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening, good morning, everyone, depending on your time zone. My name is Sven. I'm the Bazel engineering manager based in Munich, where it's dark and cold outside after a week full of snow. Temperatures raised again so that we won't have white Christmas. But it's very muddy outside, and I'm happy to be inside. And today with you, Jason.
I mean, that's clearly the most important part. Yeah, we're having the opposite. We have in the East Coast US, like crazy storms coming in today and tomorrow, and then it's going to plummet to 8 degrees Fahrenheit for Christmas. So that'll be a lot of fun. But I'm glad you're inside, nice and cozy. I'm trying to figure out a PC way of saying this, but do you have any holiday traditions, German or Sven otherwise?
We have food traditions, not so much German, but the ones in our family, mostly tailored for low cooking stress and so a good ratio of calorie intake and enjoying the time and not spending too much time cooking. But I think the biggest tradition is trying to actually, I enjoy the fact that in Germany over the Christmas holidays, the public holidays actually, all the shops are closed, which reduces the risk of having to run errands during your free time. So it's really like a couple of days just chilling and taking it easy.
Very nice. I like that. And we'll bring our second speaker up. Radhika, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Radhika. I know I've spoken to some of you on Slack or bugged you over Basil Discuss, but happy to be here and keep the conversation going pretty much. I'm the product manager for Basil. I've been here way more than 2 weeks, like I was last year. So, granted, I should know more about Basil and should have better answers or whatever. But yeah, I've completed my 9 months here. It's been a really fun ride. I've learned so much and grown so much as a person. And I've had lots of interactions with everybody inside and outside Basil. So, that's been really great.
Yeah, we're still Radhika and I are both within a year because I started in January, so we still can claim the "I'm new here" card for like one more of these, and then we actually need to start upping our game and having answers to things. I guess I should introduce myself because I always forget to at the start of these. My name is Jason Nobies. I'm a developer relations engineer, developer advocate, whatever term you like to use, on the Bazel team. Like I said, I started beginning of the year, so I've seen a lot of, in terms of what we're going to talk about today in this kind of year in review, I was around and kind of absorbing, if not attempting to contribute to most of them. Radhika, same question for you. Any interesting, fun holiday traditions?
Um, Somehow pretending that Santa is real and bringing gifts to my kids because they keep flip flopping between him being real and not being real. So I just don't know what to do. So I just pretend he's real and get the gifts no matter what.
I like it. My kids are older now. They're 15 and 11, and we haven't officially said anything, but the 15-year-old clearly knows. But I still had this like gut panic when you said that out loud. I'm like, oh my God, like if there's any kids on here watching a Basil stream, you kind of deserve to have that spoiled because this is not, you're asleep by now anyway. Cool, good. So guys, what do you want to talk about? Do you have anything in particular you want to start with, or do you want me to put you on the spot with my first question to you? I talk about last year.
Let's talk about your t-shirt. You have a pretty cool t-shirt. I wonder where that's coming from.
I'm so glad you pointed that out because there's nothing I want to do more than continue to talk about BazelCon after it obsessed the last 6 months of my life. That honestly, that may have sounded like a planned transition, but no, I really kind of wanted to duck the whole BazelCon question. Yes, so those of you who weren't there, this was our lovely BazelCon t-shirt. It was, and I guess this works for the whole year in review thing. BazelCon was last month. It was, I was thinking of this earlier. I'm watching the names come up in chat and saying hello, and I've met a bunch of you now at, I don't know what wash hands is. That just confused me. Sorry, I'm looking at the names here. And seen a bunch of you, seen a bunch of names of people I got a chance to meet at BazelCon was absolutely awesome. I remember Keith and Alex in particular being like, I've seen you for so long. And Alex, I saw backstage before it started. I'm like, just want to say hi. I'm sure we'll bounce across each other again, but we've spoken a number of times. He's been on this stream. It was awesome and exhausting. And I lasted about 3 days and then I got brutally sick, which you can kind of still hear the results of, but my body held on exactly long as it needed to. We had a good turnout. We had around 54% in-person registers who showed, which is actually really good. This was really tricky from a DRE advocacy approach because I normally plan for about 30% to not show up, especially for a free event. It goes a little bit higher because it's very easy to be like, cool, I'll sign up and then just get lazy. Um, but with COVID, with the fact that it was a hybrid event, that was a surprisingly very high number. So I was really happy everyone got a chance to come out. The live stream had even more than that. And next year, I'll tell you, I want to do a little more with them. It was kind of tricky to find people to potentially man chat or be able to interact with the virtual folks because a lot were in person. But I'd like to do that a little bit better next year, along with a couple dozen other things I would like to tweak a little bit. But yeah, I'd like to think it was a success. Thank you again to all of our speakers, especially for staying on time. As a guy who tends to ramble constantly, I know what it's like to go over and screw up a schedule, so that was pretty incredible. Yeah. So,
Because you mentioned it was a hybrid event in the very early stages of internal planning. I think when the idea came up that this year we could go for an in-person event after 2 years of completely virtual events, there was also like a moment of a discussion of like, hey, all of our prior Bazel cons have been in person only. Why should we do also streams? And I think one of the lessons learned, probably not only for BazelCon, but for all major conferences, is that hybrid is the new normal, right? Having in-person event, but also opening it up to people who don't want to or cannot travel.
Yeah, you stole my line because I actually put that in my retro as that hybrid is the new standard. Yeah, I'm going to call you out on that because that was going to be my next comment. But it really is. It really is. And I'd like to do, I didn't get a ton of feedback in either direction, but I would like to do more with the virtual audience next year. When we set out at the beginning of the year, I'm like, we're going to get 50 people, we're going to get 400. I have no idea. No one really does at this point. Everything is all kind of weird, especially back in July when we had no idea what everything would turn into. Was COVID going to get worse, better, and so on? But yeah, hybrid, it's as tired as I am of staring at this stupid webcam. It's very, very useful. We would have probably upwards of 15 to 20 people who within the last week before the conference had to change from in-person to virtual because of travel or health or whatever, and being able to accommodate that. Like this is, and I promise we'll get back to Bazel, but I know I didn't know any of you during COVID. Think about like if COVID had happened like 10 years ago, where the streaming wasn't as smooth as it is today. We didn't have like it somehow would have absolutely like shut down everything. Whereas now, like it certainly wasn't optimal, but we were able to hop onto Google Meets and Zoom and Blue Jeans and all of the other different tech out there. And especially us in tech, we didn't really struggle. I'm an adjunct professor at a university, and I heard from my students that some of the we'll put less technologically inclined professors just had no idea what to do. So it really ushered in this kind of hybrid era that, as Christoph is mentioning here, travel costs. I mean, we've got such a global population in this community that trying to shepherd everyone to a single location is going to be a problem for just a variety of reasons. So next year, nothing is set yet. I know that, no surprise, my German colleagues are like, hey, can we try it in Munich? I'm also looking at New York again, potentially the West Coast. So we'll see, but that is absolutely a 2023 problem. I do want to say one thing. I should have probably put it in the announcements. We will be having what are we calling it? Bazel Day on the OSPO channel, where sorry, I saw newbie and student special. It's a free BazelCon. Like, what's the special look like if it's already free? But that's okay. Yeah, so it's March. I'll have more details about it. We'll be sending it out. It is a shorter event, all virtual. And this is going to be a little bit of an interesting twist on it. Sven and I are still trying to figure out exactly what the speakers look like. But since it's on the OSPO, the open source, what the hell is the PO in there? Whatever the PO is, the open source, the Google's open source channel. I should stop using internal acronyms. We're expecting a bigger audience. We're expecting probably close to 30% students based on what they've seen. I hope I'm allowed to say that number out loud. So that'll be in March. I'm still kicking around the idea of a BazelCon light, completely virtual event around Q2 sometime. I feel like everything I was just saying, it's so easy-ish to do this type of thing. Like, this is very little effort to get Sven and Radhika on stage with us, that it kind of feels like a shame to not take more advantage of that in next year and have more kind of smaller events, and then figure out what BazelCon looks like. But we're off track. Sven, I'm going to throw one back to you since you put me on the spot to talk about BazelCon. What was your number one highlight of the year for Bazel? And more importantly, why was it me?
To answer your second question first, what was the thing you said? Putting me on the spot until I pretend that I have an internet outage, right? Given that I'm on corporate Wi-Fi, this is not so easy. What was the highlight? I think the highlight for me, in retrospect, in 2022, like I rejoined the project 2020, and I think it was not just COVID came up and shook up everything, but the team was going through times of change. A lot of people in the team changed. There were a lot of questions in the community. I think there was a lack of people to reach out to begin with. We had a couple of well-known names historically in the community, but I think overall the way how we managed and externally represented the project was not in super good shape. And I think this is my highlight in 2022, with Radhika, with you, with other people who joined the project. A lot of efforts that we kicked off, and I don't know if you want to go into the retrospective, but think about the special interest groups, which actually originated from an initiative by Alex and other people in the community who spawned off the rules SIG before it was called a SIG, right? And then other special interest groups started to form and to pick up speed, like IntelliJ, for example, or recently Android. We had a lot of discussions around improving community contributions. And while I assume some of you folks rightly say we're not there where we should or could be, the project matured over the past year. The leadership team on our end grew with more people wrapping their brains around it. There's a lot of passion behind it. And I think that's my overall highlight beyond all the individual features which got shipped or improved.
Okay, so to summarize what you're saying, the biggest highlight was the fact that I got hired into Google and put on the team. So cool.
And the t-shirts, of course.
Valid feedback. Yeah, absolutely. Radhika, how about you? It's an interesting question to ask you because you weren't here before this year. So in this, what did you say, 9 months or so, this whirlwind that I'm going through, what do you think? What do you think is the highlight of the year?
For me, the highlight of the year is just really being introduced to an open source community and really seeing how much power they have. Like, power to you guys. It's magical to see how being outside Google's boundaries, there's so much of innovation happening and it can be brought back and help everybody. That's like truly been very, very impressive and new for me. Specific to the question with you, you know what's the best part of seeing Jason in that uh what was that, like the whale cost dolphin?
No, hang on. We're muting. Radhika, sorry, there's a problem with your connection. I have no idea what it is. Yes, no, you can bring it up. I'm gonna forever have to live that one down.
Yeah, I didn't see Jason in the whale costume, but I saw the pictures of it and I put it in our internal newsletter. I tried to. So that's been like just so much fun. What I'm getting at is
Fantastic.
that just working with and learning with all the community, there's this mix of being professional and personal and just having a lot of fun along the way, which has been a very different experience for me.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Do you guys want to step into some of the more retrospective-y, actually organized content? We're not seeing too many questions yet, so we'll keep talking until they get sick of us and change the topic.
What do we want to retrospect? A couple of things happened in 2020, right? I mentioned one of the big organizational changes is that we introduced, we borrowed, we adopted the concept of SIGs. I think the policy is more or less spawned from TensorFlow. I believe they have something similar, and maybe the policy might be also very similar to ours. So we have the special interest groups. I wonder what can be improved around discoverability, maybe promoting them better. There's a repository essentially in our GitHub org, I think called Community, where every SIG can add their project with point of contacts and email like groups and people to reach out to, and then actually their scope and agenda. And we had, I mean, there has been the initiative around rules authors, which has then been the first SIG, which also runs their own GitHub organization. It's called Bazel-Contrib. We have the IntelliJ people in a SIG. That was actually an initiative which was older than the SIG concept, but we had this group of people meeting on a monthly base on an like need to know kind of calendar invite with a meeting notes document which you would need to know in order to participate. And I think this is more open and more transparent. There is probably more to talk about IntelliJ. Maybe Radhika wants to jump on that one. And recently also extending this to the area of Android, for example, where we also learned that we need to adopt our roadmap, open up rules Android faster for community contributions in order to actually give a meaning to the work of a special interest group. So I would say we're still in a learning phase. Some SIGs are driven by us. The rules author SIG is completely driven by the community. And just looking forward for the next years, I would hope to have more of these also community-driven special interest groups. So, but that's definitely one of the big, the areas where we made some notable progress.
Sorry, I caught like half of that. It's very hard to actually paste links as you're typing, telling them. The SIG thing I think is absolutely huge. I'd love to see that grow. I'd love to see that kind of more involvement. Let's talk about Bazel 6. Bazel 6 just came out. Y'all want to summarize kind of what the big marquee items are in that release?
The answer is probably like, is this a yes or no question?
No, it came out. That's not a yes or no question. But what do you want to talk about? Why do people care about 6?
Off the top of my head, it would be easier if we had a slide about that. But off the top of my head, I think the big theme for Bazel 6 is, of course, everything is included since Bazel 5, right? That's the technical delta that we're shipping. The one of the big changes is BZL mod being declared as general available. It's not the default way of building Bazel projects yet, but it's this huge external dependency overhaul, which started probably 2 years ago. I think it originates from the end of 2020. And for those people who have been in Bazel land before, external depths have been always a big topic, an important topic. But yeah, with 5.0, we released it in experimental stage. Now we call it available. It comes in combination with the Bazel Central Registry, which hosts Bazel modules, or which is one way of hosting Bazel modules. And we have a 1 or 2 year roadmap of further improvements for BZL mod. So this will be a continuous topic. There will be things included in Bazel 7 and Bazel 8 and in the wider ecosystem. That being said,
I'll vamp while you pull up the blog so you can have a reminder of it. The BZL, so the year 2 roadmap, I don't want to downplay that because Yoon and Shadong were on back midsummer on a community update, and we actually ran out of time, but they had slides with plans out through Bazel 10 that are obviously still very much in flux. But the fact that they're thinking this far in advance and they're looking that, yeah, this is a big deal, this is sticking around. And we're already getting some good feedback on there. Sven, why don't you tell me, as someone who kind of came into this and more went straight to BZL mod, loosely speaking, what were some of the dependency issues you bumped into earlier? Again, trying to cater to the new people like myself, as well as people who have been around for 6 years and like, yes, this is absolutely a tremendous change.
So one of the problems we wanted to solve with BZL mod, and this would be, by the way, the perfect situation to pull out one of the BZL mod engineers and leads from the back of the meeting, but we don't have them, right? So
Shudong is actually in chat. So if you have anything to contribute, Shudong, other than
let me delegate
translating Fahrenheit to Celsius.
Actually, it's I haven't been suffering the external dependencies issue that users suffered before I joined the project. Essentially, within Google, we have all of our external dependencies in the mono repo, pretty tightly controlled of what we import and what we upgrade version wise. Version wise. Oh, that's hard to pronounce in English. And like version resolution. If you have this diamond problem, you have two different dependencies depending on the same dependency, but in different versions. That one of the things which is improved with BZL mod. Also, this publishing of rules of modules into the BCR is improved. And Shudong says he can type. So while I'm talking.
He is. He's actually answering a question that about whether or not. Actually, I mean, let me read this just in case people don't review the chat. So, on BZL mod, is it ultimately going to be mandatory and effectively replace it? And Shadong has jumped in with yes in a few years.
Yes, right. So one of the open questions, I think in the original roadmap, this was either for 7 or for Bazel 8, is like, when would be BZL mod the default way of building? Default not being the unique way, but as Shudong said, eventually it should be the only way. Things which will be available much earlier and on our way towards having this more complete BZL mode would be log file support and vendoring mode. Which is kind of aimed for next year. Let's see how we execute on that.
So I want to talk about something real quick, and let me be very clear: we're not committing to anything right now. But Sven and I had this loose conversation during this week about how 6.0 came out. What was the actual number? Almost a year after 5.
Oh yeah, that's like we're yes. 3/4 to 1 year, yes.
Okay, so this is obviously not going to get answered here, and if you don't have the opportunity to answer in chat, let us know through any other channel, Slack or email. But we're starting to rethink that LTS policy. That's a bad way of saying it. No, we are not dropping LTS. Let's start with the good news there. But kind of the frequency and the cadence. This was before my time, but set out to be 9 months-ish. And then Shudong just pointed out to me it's 11 months now. So the question, and I guess this is a general thing that I don't have a survey for this community update. So in the next one, I'll include this, but kind of curious to get people's feedback on what kind of cadence they would like to see. Build is an interesting one because it's not something that's released into production where frequent releases would be more annoying, but at the same time, it still has to go through a vetting process. And I remember early in my career, that was one of the first things. And I tell my students this all the time. Like, I come in the morning, my Mac's like, you have an update. I'm like, cool, whatever. I'll go get coffee and come back. It'll be done. And then you get to the real world where they don't have the luxury of just throwing random updates out and praying that they work. Already seeing a comment from Brentley, though. He would like closer to 9 months. So maybe more frequent, smaller releases is something we can play with. Again, not committal. I'll just give you a second.
Not that we didn't start thinking about it early enough, right? So one of the lessons learned from Bazel 5.0 1 year ago was that it took longer than expected. And one of the reasons was also a long process of picking changes, and it just took a lot of time. And to a certain extent, we might have repeated some of these patterns again, also because we needed and wanted to get a couple of things in which really needed to be in there, including changes for BZL mod. And I was kind of I was kind of suggesting half seriously to maybe we just calling it officially a 1-year release plan that's easier to convey, that's easier to plan, that's easier to plan for. I hear you, Brandley, that it should be closer to 9 months. One of the reasons which speaks against going to a 12-month schedule for what it's worth is that we might end up with a 50-month schedule, right? So maybe instead of extending lowering the frequency and extending the time frame for 7.0, we should start even earlier, starting to cut the release and be a little bit more aggressive on saying no, what gets into. On the other side, everybody wants to land that changes, right? So it's hard to make to balance it, and maybe there will be also a nice community topic. Shudong actually managed both the release of 6.0 and 5.0, so he has a lot of experience and probably also a lot of things to share about what it is to be on the receiving end of being the one of the release managers and having to deal with all the hot lists. I don't know if Eunice on the call, he was also very much involved into organizing that.
Yeah, so a little more feedback. 1 year sounds like a fairly heavy weight. Like there are going to be potentially a lot of changes in there. I want to reiterate, I'm certainly, I threw this a bit at Sven. It was a personal conversation like, hey, this is something we should do in public. I wasn't around when the 9 months was decided, but everything is open to change. Absolutely everything, especially in an open source project. It works until it doesn't is generally my mentality. So not saying we'll necessarily rethink it. Maybe we will try to hit this 9 months next time. It's so weird because you ultimately have to have a couple of years of data to be like, okay, 9 months is doable for us, or 6 or 12. But there's an interesting conversation going on in chat right now about breaking changes. People are requesting changes and so on. I think I don't know the best avenue for it, but I would be super interested in getting the community's idea of what they would like to see. And again, obviously not committing to anything. And this year was obviously a very volatile is not the right word for Google, but they hired their first TRE, they hired PM. So there was a lot of, I'm not really a sports guy, but a building year, I think is what they would use in baseball. In any event, things are obviously still open to change. Cool conversation. I want to find a way to facilitate this better, and I don't really know what it is, but I'll work on it. I'm kind of glad we brought this topic up. Important part I want to say is the LTS concept is sticking around. At least to my knowledge, we have no intention of dropping that. I think keeping LTS, in case anyone is new to the term, long-term support. It's the idea. It's very important in open source projects where, especially ones where you have nightly builds and betas and release candidates and so on, to have, yes, this is actually going to be supported.
One of the challenges from our perspective is that we don't know which versions are being used, right? So 4.0 was the first LTS release. It's still in scope. It received a security update only recently, along with 5. So 4. Don't ask me. 4.3. 5.1, something like that, received a security update. 5. Something also did. With Bazel 7, we're approaching the time when Bazel 4. Gets out of support, and I wonder what this means for users and if there are use cases where you would stick to an old release for more than 3 years. We have a proxy metric, which is people looking at old release documentation. If you go to the version documentation of Bazel, it goes back to 0.0 something. And sometimes people really look for old documentation. I wonder if they do it intentionally or if it's just a deep link from a page which is clicked. So that's maybe a topic also for next year, is like, what about the versions? What about old versions? How long do they matter for you out there?
Yeah, I this ended up being a bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm really glad we got down it because, like I said, I'm curious to continue this and finding the best avenue for it. No obvious immediate changes. This isn't the kind of thing that we pivot on and we have a new release in February. But Like in the feedback here, favor of 6 months less in terms of feature squeeze. This is, you get a bunch of engineers. This is a great sitting around having a beer conversation where everybody has their pain points from releases and things that have worked and things that haven't. So I'd like to continue that. At the same point, we're running a little bit low on time, so I want to look ahead to 2023. And before I open it up to you two, there was earlier comment. Where? No, let's just do this one. Basically being asked for more introductory content, entry-level content in the wild, so more people could get a general idea of Bazel, and then he abbreviates it to explain like I'm 5 content, which is actually a very cool way of saying it. This is a huge thing for me going into next year. Having gone through the learning process in January, and Radhika having gone through it shortly after me, we're fairly fresh on what it's like for a new user. And quite frankly, that's my interest level, is creating content and that types of things. I mentioned earlier, I would love to get some type of roadshow concept going, but that is purely me thinking out loud. Probably even stuff that I don't know that I should be saying in front of the community, but I'm very transparent with open source. Like, I'd like to get it done. I have no idea how well it's going to work. But back to content. So for BZL mod, I have demo applications and outlines for a handful of different tutorials. I just haven't had a chance to actually put the words around them yet. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting confused myself here. So pointed to legacy documentation. Let's talk about this too, because the versions thing, I love the idea, and I think with a few minor tweaks or implementation of it, it could be considerably clearer. But I've worked on projects in the past where if the URL said latest, it would auto redirect to whatever the current version was. And this is the kind of thing that when you start to, also have echoing that comment, as this kind of thing gets a little out of control is not the right word, but as it matures and you have more releases, this suddenly becomes a problem when it initially wasn't, or you didn't think it was going to be. But back to content creation, that new user experience, that onboarding, that new feature tutorials, this is where my interests lie. So I'm hoping early next year to get started on adding a lot more of that. And then we're also working on ways to have the rules authors contribute their own and be either referenced from our site. Go figure, Google's got all sorts of legal things about what we can and cannot include on the site. But having ways for the rules authors to maintain their own tutorials, like a consistent template, and then us being able to say, yeah, check this GitHub repo. You could just find the examples directly within it. This is a really interesting feedback on explaining like I'm 5. My only, it's an interesting idea that the caveat we bump into here is I teach college students, and Maven is hard enough for them, much less something like Bazel, which is significantly more powerful / complicated because of the power. Yeah, Sven?
Maven has probably Maven is everywhere, right? If you look into, frankly, if you look into the documentation, how to build Java applications on Google Cloud, all the examples come with put the snippet into your POM and you're done, right? And it works like a charm. We don't have those snippets for Bazel. This could evolve into the discussion. Okay, why is Google not putting these? Maybe it's a chicken and egg problem, right? In terms of adoption. But I think Maven is comparably easy to succeed just based on information everywhere on the web how to use it. That would be my point.
Certainly part of it. Shadong echoes what has been the bane of my existence as DevRel on this project, is that it is hello world does not demonstrate why you would care about Bazel. And it's a kind of fascinating new challenge for me, because 6-7 years of this now, I've been crafting demos to demonstrate certain things, and you learn what to trim out so you don't lose people. This is very difficult because you need to have a beefy application to really flex it. And how do you do that while at the same time not hammering someone with a giant application saying, hey, digest all of this, and then how to use Bazel on top of it. We're seeing, I didn't intend to to go down this path of Maven. It was a kind of half-assed example. But this is cool. I can't stress enough. This chat in the community chat going on is phenomenal. I wish I had more ways to facilitate that. Sven, 2023, what does it look like for you for Bazel?
I think combining these things, like one of the focuses, you said that? One of our focus areas of 2023 will be making the Android developer experience using Bazel better, working on rules Android, getting then open sourced in Starlark, which means also an updated like toolchain and the entire tooling around it as compared to the native rules which are currently shipped. And this also includes better documentation, sample projects, which are not just trivial, but also like non-trivial, non-hello world sample projects. I think recently was it someone from the community? Was it?
Yeah, so
Eve added or Ben added a example for using Jetpack Compose, I believe, to the repo. So conceptually, like from all the areas where we need to improve, one of the focus areas, at least for the next half year, if not for the entire year, will be around Android development, which then also includes Java, Kotlin. I don't want to talk about IDE improvements because that's probably a completely different kind of worms that we might want to open, but definitely focusing on better IntelliJ support and then seeing how we can evolve this into a better experience. And this also then touches on documentation and examples and maybe roadshows, who knows? But that would be probably a theme for us for next year, which guides us.
yeah, I would so love it. I miss kind of standing up. You lecture for a half an hour and then people just start typing away and answer questions. Fantastic. When you say Android development, you mean app development, not
Yes.
platform development? Or, okay, just want to be careful. We tend to shorthand it.
That's a very heavyweight project which is happening. Got announced already 1 or 2 years ago. It's making progress. But when I'm thinking about Android development, I'm thinking about app developers.
Gotcha. Run out of time, Radhika. Anything you want to contribute? Goals for 2023?
No, I think Sven covered most of them. It's basically improving our BZL mod and bringing that as a fully complete solution where it goes just beyond being in experimental mode, but also supporting all the JVM external vendoring, lock file, being hermetic and all that. And then the second big priority is making sure like our Android app development ecosystem continues to evolve and meets the needs, where it doesn't today. So all your requirements of like supporting R8, app bundle support, we really want to make that available. But one of our goals is not to make all the Android app development support available in isolation, but to do it in collaboration with the community. So earlier this year, in Q3, Alex and Ted, who work on our Android ecosystem, made sure that the the GitHub repository is structured so community can at least begin to raise PRs. And it's interesting. We closed, I think, to the tune of 32 Android PRs, which is like pretty impressive, and you can see it on our blog. So that just shows how much we are dedicating towards accepting community contributions, and we want to continue to improve that process. So in the Android space next year, we hope that we can continue to take community contributions as well as Googler contributions and improve that ecosystem holistically. So just more feature completeness, making it much more, I don't know, bug free and gap free is what we're aiming to do. And by just focusing in these areas, I think we'll really be able to move the needle with Bazel 7.0.
Awesome. I love that you started by basically echoing Sven's, because that shows that PM and engineering are in the same direction. If you had said entirely different things, I would be mildly concerned, but I'm not.
We're aligned.
Oh, clearly, very, very. This is a very smooth machine by now. It's been
again,
months.
you asked me in the beginning, what's the and while fishing for compliments apart, right? One of the big differences this year is people like you, Radhika, and you, Jason, joining the team, adding just covering different aspects of it beyond just engineers trying to figure out making sense of things, putting a stronger focus on a better, like more faces, more availability to the community. And I think this is what's also resulting in these 2023 plans and 2024 plans, and then it's getting fuzzy, right? But we have future plans, and I think that's the good message for me.
Yeah, I'm excited to start the year not being completely new to absolutely everything. I think it'll be really cool to return from the holiday break with. Which, speaking of which, we are out of time and everyone is itching to start their holidays. So, going to wrap this one up. As usual, thank you to the community for the conversations going on the side. I've been watching all of them, trying to escalate as possible. This is making me think I would love to facilitate more conversational things, and I don't know the best way. This is kind of one of the things I wanted out of this. Like I tend to run when I was teaching during COVID, when I was doing my workshops at my previous job during COVID, I ran very much like a Twitch stream for any of you gamers where I you can see it. I keep an eye on the chat. I'll pull things in. I'll reply to them. I'll get distracted by them. And that's great. It's a step up for facilitating. Let's have the community just kind of chat with each other and with us. I'd love to find new ways for that. So if anybody has a great medium for that or any ideas that have worked in the past, I'm all ears. Also, to what Sven said earlier about the Android examples from the community, I'm a breathtakingly novice Android developer. So looking for any help I can get there. And really all the tutorials, because I am one person, I have another DRE internally, I have part overtime. So any help y'all want, feel free to contact us. However, do not contact me until next year because I am so done with thinking for 2022. So I will let all of you go. Thank you, Sven. Thank you, Radhika. I have been your DRE host. It has been a great year. I've had a blast meeting all of you. Happy, safe holidays to whatever it is you celebrate. And I will see you next year. Take care, everyone.